Good morning.
And good evening, beautiful people. What a freaking weekend we just had for NCAA March Madness men's side, but more particularly
The
the
race
women's
wars
side, Dion.
continues.
Oh, man, stop it. Not the race war. Not the race war. But it was a battle down there. When it comes to the Elite Eight, Iowa versus LSU, everyone was talking about it. I was itching to watch it. The first half, I was at the edge of my seat the whole time. 3-pointers going crazy. Caitlin Clark is doing her thing, but Angel Reese came out hot. A couple big time steals in that first half, got her team going, demanding the ball. It's crazy how she could demand the ball, but Anthony Davis can't demand the ball down low. Kind of weird how that works. But props to Angel being able to say, hey, I deserve more touches. She got more touches and dominated in that first half, but then hurt her ankle midway through that first half, and everything was downhill after that when it came to her game. I think 1 for 12 after stepping out the game with that ankle injury. And so Iowa took the dub over LSU because, Dion, you just going to let Caitlin shoot all day? Are you not going to switch? What's going on with that?
Hey, as in Haley. That's all you can do. That's all you can do.
What am I supposed to do with that?
You throw this up in the game, I got to take you out as a coach. As the coach, you got to come sit down. You can't do this.
I know.
You can't.
I know. It looked bad. She's like, what am I supposed to do? And the reporter during the game is funny because she mentioned how, before the game she was talking to Haley Van Lith and like was one of the keys on defending Caitlin Clark. And she said, well, you just can't let her shots get in your head because she's going to make crazy circus shots. Just don't let it affect you. But at a certain point, you just got to stand on business, bro. You just can't let her make the shots. Like I get it. She's going to make a couple, but you got to at least stop one of them. You can't just let her shoot it like that. So, yeah, I was surprised he didn't switch Flau'jae onto her. I know Flau'jae was a little bit of foul trouble, but Caitlin Clark wasn't going to the rack like that. So it wasn't really a foul trouble type thing. It's more so, in my opinion, put a body on her that's bigger, that's longer, so then she has some type of better contest, or even just hedging on that pick that they were doing and not having Angel Reese down the paint, just waiting down low for the pick and roller. But I think in my eyes, you got to force Caitlin right at some point. But who am I? I'm not Coach Mulkey. She's been in the news a lot lately, so she probably knows more things than I do. But that wasn't the only Texas women's basketball game. Texas also played in the Elite Eight. Unfortunately, they came out on the short end of the stick, losing 76-66 to North Carolina State. Isaiah James, not gonna lie, had no idea who she was. Had no idea who she was before the game. What you bargain for, D? She's a dog, huh?
She got that dog in her. Am I right? The CAT scan came back. She got that dog in her.
No, that was nasty. I mean, the couple step backs she hit, 3-point line. But, of course, before the game, before we start talking about the actual game, everything before the game was making national headlines. NCAA came out with a statement saying the right side of the basketball court for the Elite Eight game up in Portland was a little bit longer, 9 inches longer on the right side than the left side, Dion. I know before the pod you talked about it's not that big of a deal, but are you saying it shouldn't have mattered? What are you saying?
I'm not gonna say it doesn't matter. I think that it's not. I do think it's not that big of a deal. I thought we were gonna talk about like feet. It was like a huge difference in that. A couple inches when it comes to the basketball court. The game is not a game of inches like it is in football. But I know you're gonna ask, like, if I was a coach, I probably would have still just waited for them to fix it, though.
Yeah,
because I don't want that to be the headline after the game. I don't want that to be this side of the court was this, and that's why either that first half we shot terribly, or the second half that's why we shot terribly. Like, I would have just waited and, hey, y'all fix that. We'll wait however long. But yeah, I don't think 9 inches is that big of a deal. But what you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good conversation because before the game, they asked the coaches, right? Coach Schaefer was in that conversation. Do you want to play this game right now as the court is right now, or do you want to wait a couple hours? We'll delay it. We'll fix the court. And the coaches both chose to play the game as is. And so I know for me, if I was in that situation, of course, I'm asking the players, what do you expect to do? And I'm sure Coach Schaefer took the time to ask his players what would they prefer to do. And I also know that, look, if I'm Coach Schaefer, I'm looking at the game plan, and I know what NC State does, and I know what we do well. And so when it comes to UT, throughout the year, they only taken 374 three-point shots all season. Now, when it came to the Wolfpack, they took 616 three-point shots. So I'm sure Coach Schaefer is also factoring that in the sense of we don't shoot as many threes as they do. And so it could be a little bit of an advantage for us if there's not some equality on both sides of the court. And so in that type of thinking, I would understand why you would play as is, because in your mind, we're going to drop it down low anyways. That's how we play. And hopefully the mismatch when it comes to the length of the court will play a positive factor for us. And so I don't know, like I see the strategy behind it, but also like you mentioned, Deon, I don't want at the end of the day to be like, well, the courts were different, and we take the L, and now we can just always talk about that for the rest of the year about how that may have played a factor, maybe not played a factor. But I don't like the unknown. I would have just wanted to ball out without any questions on the court. And so, yeah, I'm right there with you. I would probably wait it. I would have delayed a little bit, but I also see what Coach Schaefer was doing. If that was his game plan of we don't shoot as many threes as they do, so it may not affect us as much. So I don't mind them playing that game. And when they did play, man, Isaiah James, my apologies, Isaiah James went crazy, dropped 27 points on the Horns. It really was the first game, it felt like, Deon, that they missed Rory Harmon defensively. You know what I'm saying? Best on-ball defender for this team. Shea Holly has stepped up so well this year, becoming on the all-defensive team for the Big 12 at the end of the year. But still, no one can replace what the on-ball defense of Rory Harmon has in games like that when you have a scorer like that in Isaiah James. And so they just weren't able to get stops, D. I mean, it's been weird because I feel like we've been talking about their defense all year. Am I not tripping?
Yeah, and this being the game where you really needed it to come through and carry you as you have some offensive struggles. I mean, they only shot 6 threes. They only made one of them. You struggled on that side of the floor. Didn't really shoot too well from the free throw line. I checked on the stats. Like I said, I texted you after the game that they were killing the glass.
Mm-hmm.
They got all the extra opportunity. They shot about almost around 20 more extra shots, and you still find a way to lose by 10 points. It's tough, not having Shea to have that other extra person to buckle down on your defense,
especially on the perimeter too.
Yeah, right. So it's crazy. It's crazy that, like I said, Danny mentioned that, hey, that Texas offense can be lacking, but that defense, when they decide to lock up, it's 40 minutes of hell. So it's crazy that's what we're talking about. Hey, they just couldn't get stops when they needed to. And
you spoke about Danny Davis from the Awesome American Statesman, what he's talked about before the game and how dominant they've been on defense. He actually released a tweet before the game, heading into that matchup for the Elite Eight, and he brought up a great stat, right? This has been historically the best NCAA tournament run defensively for Texas women's basketball in school history. They were giving up only 48 points a game heading into this Elite Eight matchup. That's the least amount of points ever for Texas women's basketball in the NCAA tournament. And so defense has been dominant throughout the year, and it even rolled over into the NCAA tournament. But for some reason in this game, it just kind of felt like a little bit how Iowa and LSU was, right? It's like LSU's getting all these offensive boards with Angel Reese down low and Nisa Morrow, but they weren't capitalizing off those extra shots. While on the other end, the other team's getting 3 points while you're getting 2. And eventually that stacks up. NC State, they made 9 of 18 3-pointers, 50% from the 3-point line. And Texas only made 1, like you mentioned, Deon, 1 for 6. And so that's a total, if I'm doing my math correctly, 27 points to just 3, 24-point discrepancy on the 3-point line for these two teams. And that plays a big factor when it's only a 10-point game. And so, yeah, D, I feel like the defense, they weren't able to get stops because the perimeter defense is something that they kind of struggle with against teams that can shoot the 3 ball at a high clip. I mean, remember back to the Oklahoma games, their 2 Big 12 losses. Both those games, Oklahoma was able to shoot lights out to beat them. And so NC State just took the same model, and they had a couple girls, mainly Isaiah James, ball out, go 7 for 9 from the 3-point line. And there's just no answer to that. And so, yeah, I just think this team kind of struggled throughout the year facing teams that could really shoot the rock. And you saw it again in the Elite Eight matchup against NC State. So unfortunate endings for Texas women's basketball. I know a lot of high hopes. Of course, a couple of things, though, like Taylor Jones is coming in with a concussion. She was overcoming that injury. And Madison Booker, 8 for 21 on the night. Felt like she had a lot on her plate, trying to just kind of carry this team offensively. You know, keeping up with scoring is tough when you have a girl on the other side of the court shooting 9 for 17, scoring 27 points and hitting step back 3-pointers. Like it's tough to keep up. And so it was a cool Elite Eight. You know, you got to see Madison Booker do her thing this year on a sensational season. Coach Schaefer having to move the chess pieces around after Rory gets hurt and still manages to find a way to get the most out of his girls. Unfortunate for a girl like Shaylee Gonzalez, though. Her career at UT is now over. 6-year senior, transferred in from BYU, just a complete winner. She would do anything to win for this team, whether it's scoring one night, whether it's assisting one night, whether it's just locking up on defense. It didn't matter. She just wanted to win. So I'm just happy to see her career go as it went. But unfortunately, I didn't get to go all the way to the Final Four like she wanted. And it was a great team, Deon, but a lot of bright things in the future for this squad.
Yeah, are you excited to see this team next year? And when they get all their pieces back healthy, and I mean, I can see this team making another run next year.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, you're getting Rory back, and you're not losing a lot. I mean, you're losing Shaylee Gonzalez. I think Taylor Jones still has another year of eligibility. I believe Shay Holly has another year of eligibility. She didn't do any of the senior day stuff, so my guess is she will be coming back again. And so you lose a shooter in Shaylee, but you can get that in the transfer portal. That's always something. That's how they got her, was in the transfer portal. But I think the biggest things are these freshmen that's coming in right now that's actually competing in the McDonald's All-American game down in Houston. Justice Carlton, number 7 overall recruit, and Jordan Lee, the number 8 overall recruit. Back-to-back recruits right there. Carlton is from Houston, more specifically the Katy area. Last year, she averaged 25 points and 10 rebounds, Deon, as a forward, 6'1" forward from Katy. And then Jordan Lee, guard from Cali, or I should say California, because apparently people from California say they don't say Cali. Have you heard that, by the way, D? Do you have friends from California?
I'm trying to think.
I've always called it Cali.
Yeah, I feel like maybe that is an outsider thing. Yeah. Maybe that's something we always call it. But that's funny. Everybody just picks one little thing to. No, we don't say that here. We don't say that.
Yeah,
here.
Dude. I have a coworker. She's like, "Yeah, I'm from California, Corey. We don't do Cali. We say California." I'm like, "Well, my bad. My apologies. I just like to shorten it." But yeah, Jordan Lee, 6-foot guard from California. She averaged 20 points and 7 rebounds last year. So you're getting 2 20-point scores coming in, freshman class, All-Americans, and then you're adding Rory back, assuming she'll be healthy, and you're locked and loaded, dude. Like that's the way I see it. You're hoping that Booker can make that progression, as a sophomore next year, and also not have to have so much weight on her shoulders, which I'm interested to see how that affects her game. That make her play more freely. Even though she played freely this year, I will say that. I'm not saying she played stiff, but just having less responsibilities, I think, always makes a player better. And so I'm interested to see how that happens and how that kind of plays out. But Aaliyah Moore comes back, and she has another year under her belt where she stayed healthy, balled out in March. And there's a lot of positive things to look out for this team next year and then for the years to come, because 2026, I've been telling people this, but Aaliyah Chavez, 2026. If they're able to get Aaliyah, Lubbock, Monterey, look her up if you don't know who she is. But
yeah, if I'm Texas, hey, we got $10 million NIL deals for you over here. Hey, whatever you need, if you need a private jet, if you need whatever you need, we gonna find a way. I'm gonna call my boosters tonight. Like, hey, if you need your own crib out in Austin, like, just let us know, because I would be putting all my chips in on her, because you can definitely guarantee that she's going to be, if she decides to stay for a few years, oh, man.
Bonafide bucket. Easy. So So
Easy.
bright future, I would say, for women's basketball. Now, I know for men's basketball, we weren't able to talk about their loss last week because we were out doing our things. Life hit us pretty hard. But yeah, even men's basketball's future. They got a couple dudes, Nick Cody from the Ford from Texas, and then of course Trey Johnson. He's at the All-American game right now down in Houston as well. He's a Dallas kid, and apparently word on the street is he gets buckets. Like word on the street is he's a 3-level scorer, can do anything on the court, whether it's inside, outside, mid-range. And that's exactly what Texas men's basketball was missing this year. A guy on the perimeter that could just get his own bucket. Max Abmas, of course, was a great shooter. Of course, he's able to, I guess, a great spot finder, people would call it, on the court when it comes to off ball, knowing where to go. And pick and roll action, he did pretty well with that. But when it comes to just getting a straight bucket with the ball in your hands and facing a double team, Trey Johnson, 6'6", does his thing with that. Great size, great athleticism. So you got to get somebody else though with them. And of course, with men's basketball, the question is Dylan Mitchell going to go to the draft? That's what everyone's wondering. Is he going to transfer? I mean, that's also a possibility. Let's not act like that's not a thing with this day and age. Same thing with Tyrese Hunter. Is he going to stay or is he going to transfer? A lot of questions for this roster next year that Rodney Terry's going to have to figure out. But I do think one thing that he needs to do in the transfer portal, get a shooter. They have to get more shooters on this team. You saw that was the weakness all year, right? No one could really shoot outside of Dylan Dessou and Max Abmas. Tyrese Hunter had a couple games, but consistently wasn't there. Kendall Weaver, great player. Hopefully he continues to progress, but also shooting was a struggle for him this year. And Ethel Horton, the guy that they brought in from UCF, IT was supposed to be the shooter as well, but couldn't play to that role as highly as he wanted to. And so if I'm Coach Terry, I'm going out and getting one of the best shooters in the transfer portal just so we can have that on the roster. You're getting Caden Shedrick back at that center position. So you still got size coming back, but you need to replace Dessou and you need to replace Max Abmas. And that's more than half of the team's offense right there. So got to figure out how you're going to replace that. But in the meantime, let's see if D Mitch stays on the 40 acres. We'll see if Tyrese Hunter stays on the 40 acres. Until you get those questions answered, I think that's when you start worrying about who do you get in the transfer portal. But interesting situation right now for the men's basketball
Corey,
team.
you're telling me that they're not firing Rodney Terry?
No, they're not firing Rodney Terry. They definitely shouldn't fire Rodney Terry. I mean, one year, do lost Ron Holland, who, by the way, is about to be a top 5 pick, guys. I mean, that's something you can't understate, I feel like, when it comes to this roster this past year. Losing a guy like AJ Johnson, losing a guy like Ron Holland late in the transfer portal window, it's tough. It's tough for any coach to go out and just go find another guy who's about to be a top 5 pick in the NBA draft. It's just not possible. And so a lot of people are maybe say, well, that's his job, right? Is to build a great roster. But you also got to be realistic because he did build it. He did go out and get the commit. Yeah. He did go out and get these guys to say, hey, I'm willing to come to the 40 acres for the next couple of years of my life, or even just 1 year for Ron Holland's sake. He got that job done. Now, it's hard when the G League Ignite is saying, hey, you don't got to worry about class. You just got to come here and hoop and play against professionals. It's a tough argument. And so at the end of the day, can't blame him for losing a recruit because you don't know who's in that recruit's ear, who's talking to him, who's saying you don't need to go to college, you just need to go to the G League. You don't know. And so all you can do is say what you got on the campus, and hopefully they accept it. And unfortunately, it just didn't go the way they wanted. But they did get Trey Johnson, and so we'll see if RT can keep Trey Johnson on this roster before the summer's over with. So that would be the next big test for RT. But yeah, definitely think he deserves another year, especially with the roster he had. It wasn't a great roster, if we're being honest. I just named all the weaknesses. I mean, a team that can't shoot. Yeah. Like, you can't win.
A lot of weaknesses, yeah. It's tough to overcome. Especially the day and age that we live in now, it's tough to overcome inconsistent three-point shooting. You don't have to be great three-point shooters. And, shout out to the men's NC State with my boy
DJ Burns. Go DJ. Yeah, that's my DJ. Yeah, later in the pod, we're actually going to talk to Jake Eichstaedt from North Carolina. He's one of the sports anchors out there. He works in Wilmington, North Carolina, home of Michael Jordan, by the way, Deon. We're going to dive into NC State. He was actually watching the NC State versus Texas game with the North Carolina State legend in women's basketball. So we'll talk more about that later in the pod. But yeah, DJ Burns been doing his thing.
Why you telling me about Michael Jordan? We done with the 90s, remember?
Hey, Jordan couldn't go left, huh? That's what the streets are saying.
We done with the 90s.
What the streets are saying. Jordan couldn't go left. Not just the streets, video shows it too. But let's not talk about it.
God.
Let's not talk about it.
We done with the 90s. Oh man, that's my favorite trend, boy. That's my favorite trend. But yeah, man, hoops. This has been a great year of March Madness. Of course, like we said, the women's game deserves all the love, all the recognition. It's been great seeing these ladies go out and compete every single night. The fellas, not as entertaining, but there are some good storylines still in there. I'm loving DJ Burns. Like I said, the return of the center is coming back, man. We got DJ Burns. We got Audie Crooks at Iowa State. I'm loving the bigs, yo. I'm loving the bigs. It's fun. Zach Edey, even though his game is a little,
it's a little stiff,
still a big. It's not as fluid. It's not as sexy. But
he dropped 40 though, bro.
Exactly. We're coming back to the game where the big man, it's not sexy, but it's gonna get it done. It's gonna get it. You got Angel Reese. Her games never look sexy. Like her bag is ugly, but she gets it done. You can't deny the stats. So look, I'm loving it. I'm loving the return of the bigs, and college basketball. It has a place in my heart that it's never going anywhere, man. You gotta love people, especially with the NIL. You're giving people more incentive to stay. The people that after this, they're probably going to be accountants, lawyers. Their dreams of the league is probably not up there. Shout out to Jack Goldkey.
Yeah, Jack Goldkey.
Right, he already know. He already know. Hey, I'm not going to the league. But bruh, I'm gonna be out here get my little. After that game, he killed Kentucky. He had a tax act or a TurboTax deal immediately after. Like, come on.
That's what the game is for. It's what March. That's what March is for,
bro. So, yeah, I'm loving this, man. This has been some great storylines. You gotta love college basketball. But yeah, I mean, look, we got an interview coming up. Cory already teased it. Let's go ahead and talk about some more March Madness, some ladies hoops, some men's hoops. This is good, man. This is a great pod.
Yeah, bro. Going into our next interview with Jake Eichstaedt. First time on the pod. We'll see how he likes it, but about to dive into some NC State talk and, of course, March Madness talk in general. Just get his perspective about the state of North Carolina right now with both men's and women's in the Final Four for the first time in school history. Jake Eichstaedt is here to talk all about it. Your boy's in the building, Jake Eichstaedt. What's up, baby? How you doing this morning?
Hey guys, I'm doing great this morning. I'm so blessed to be here with you guys. Deon, I've looked up your work. I'm a big fan of yours. Cory, you're one of my best friends in the world, but as close as you are to me, I'm a bigger fan of your work. So I'm really blessed. I'm really happy to be here talking sports with you guys, especially just given the explosion of the women's game specifically. I'm very passionate about it, and I'm really happy you guys are talking about it, and so many people are talking about it.
That means a lot, Jake. Thank you, bro.
I appreciate that first and foremost. But look, man, the
women's before we get into it, Deon, I just want to ask one random before we can talk about anything sports, because we were talking about this before the pod. I mean, before you came on, Jake, I should say. You're a California guy, grew up in LA. Mm-hmm. Is it true y'all don't say Cali out there? There's a big debate that we're having.
I've said Cali.
Okay.
But I definitely feel like the accentuation of the word, like Cali, bro, like that's not something I'm really familiar with. But I've definitely said the abbreviated version of California before. I'm not going to act like I'm like holier than that. But I definitely feel like there's a condescending tone to it when I hear it from outside my home state.
Okay, so you feel like it's kind of demeaning a little bit when you just say Cali.
Yeah, maybe not demeaning, but just kind of like, people, all the West Side kind of perception. And, I just feel like, people have a certain way of, thoughts about it or, whatever it is. And it's not always as positive as maybe I'd like it to be. So I definitely have said Cali, though. I definitely have said Cali.
Tough. Cory trying to make it tough for you to go home, man. Golly.
Hey, I haven't been back in a long time. But I would like to go back whenever I can.
You got to
yeah, man. Like I was saying, we gotta. I mean, the women's game deserves all the love in the world. This is, like you said, this explosion over these last few years. I think the one and done has really hurt the men's game, and it's really put more light on. We have a lot of great storylines with the women's game. Of course, we have LSU and Iowa. You can't see me. We got the dominance of Don Staley at South Carolina. But we got to talk about NC State. I mean, they're both teams.
Teams. People talk about the men being a dark horse. I don't think the women were as much as a dark horse. The women have been a really good program under Westmore for more than a few years now. They're recruiting really well. They're not even just recruiting locally, but just the girls from DMV down to even part where I'm at in North Carolina. I'm not necessarily in Raleigh. I'm down in Wilmington, the southern part of the state. One of their best players is from our area, so we follow along with her and the team a lot. They've been strong for a while now, but I think it also just speaks to the depth of the state of North Carolina. Duke advanced really far as well. We know how strong the South Carolina women are. Like you said, just this region is really a hotbed for basketball. And in my few years being here, I'm really starting to see it.
Can you just give us a pulse on what the city's like right now? Are they excited? Is everybody running around with a shirt off? NC State.
They got the bell tower up in Raleigh, and every time they win, you rush the bell tower. And I feel like every day I open my phone and I see WRAL, all these big stations in Raleigh. They just got the live feed up and just don't even take it down because we're rushing the bell at some point between the men's and the women's team. And what's crazy, I don't know the scheduling conflicts. They keep scheduling the men and the women overlapping each other. So it's been kind of I think I can't remember if I think the women played first on Thursday, and then they found out the men won, right after they won. And it's just so cool to see the love for both of them. They've been feeding off each other, but the community as well. It's been really strong. Obviously, Duke advanced really far as well. They've been out. We got a ton of UNC fans in the area. They advanced pretty far, but obviously they are out as well. I hope people can put away the Carolina blue and the Duke blue and put on some red. That's at least how I think. I think if you speak to a lot of these fans, that's definitely not how they think. But yeah, the support has been apparent. It's been cool to see.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask that in the sense of, sometimes you see people rally together, for the state. I know you have the rivalries or whatever, but at a certain point, you're out of it. We're out of it. Y'all the only ones left standing. Let's just support the state. So you're saying that's not really a thing? You don't feel like it's going to happen there?
So if I could take you back to, I'm from California, like we just discussed. I grew up split, USC, UCLA. I didn't get why you had to pick. I know people went to school and graduated from certain places, but USC football, when I was growing up and, when I was 10 years old, 2005, they were the best. How could you not want to see them be great? And then I was going off into high school, Jim Mora comes to town. Josh Rosen commits to UCLA. How could you not want to root for the Bruins to be good? So I guess that's always just kind of been my philosophy, is maybe not necessarily when they're up, root for them, but you got to at least recognize the greatness and, support when there's national ring around these kinds of teams. But I'm going to say most of the people I talk to are in their lane, and they're not willing to support the school that's only, I think it's 8 miles away on Tobacco Road between some of these schools. So I understand, that you got your pride and you were entrenched in it, and that's, and that's what but I personally think you gotta open the blinders a little bit, support your like folk, the people like you, just down the road.
Right. Well, they may not be supporting, but they're definitely watching. You brought up a stat earlier, right, about how the state of North Carolina is apparently just not working nowadays. They're just watching basketball.
Hey. I didn't say they're not working. I said they're watching basketball while they're working. The first weekend of the March Madness tournament, this is how basketball crazed the state of North Carolina is. 64% of people who were working the Thursday and Friday, the round of 64, were 64% of people watching March Madness were also working in the state of North Carolina. It's like 9% higher than every other state. I think it also speaks to the amount of teams, just even from the region, that are in the, we've seen, obviously Davison has had a lot of success. NC Central with LaVelle Moton is a really, really, really strong program. Duke, Carolina, State, Wake Forest. It goes on and on. I mean, there's even some Clemson fans here, especially in the Wilmington area where I'm from. Their head coach, Brad Brownell, is a UNCW former coach, so he gets a lot of support here locally. There's just so many teams, and I think that's what, like, you can't be a basketball fan and not have a dog in the race because there's somebody from around here that's in it.
That's super dope. That's real dope. And, it's also dope that y'all made it to the Final Four. Y'all just had to beat Texas on the way to getting there. But I will want to ask you this question, because this is a topic of discussion earlier in the pod, Jake, was when you're in that situation as a head coach and NCAA comes to you and tells you, hey, we messed up. Hey, coach, the right side of the court is about 9 inches longer than the left side of the court on the three-point line. What would you do if you're in that situation? Would you play the game, or would you have delayed it and make sure the court was fixed?
Well, look, I'm going to commend the girls for playing. Similar instances have happened in the WNBA this year. Not even necessarily with the court dimensions, but also like things like the basket. And sometimes they've decided to delay the game. And obviously, as much as we're talking about the explosion of the women's game, that's still a huge tax on the people putting on the tournaments to then fix it. I know it's totally disappointing that it happened. But I think, you're going both halves and both teams acknowledged it. So I will say personally, I'm happy that they did decide to play. It's really disappointing that it happened, but I will say good for them for deciding, like, you know what, we're here, we're both ready, we both have to go through it. Let's continue playing the game. Yeah, if I'm the coach though, it's probably a little bit of a different conversation. Obviously, they elected to play the game, so I don't want to put words in either coach's mouth. But I would have trouble with it. I'm not gonna lie, I would have trouble with it.
Yeah, me too. I just couldn't. Like, when I get home at night, if I would have lost the game, me thinking, what if? I don't like that feeling of what if everything was the way it's supposed to be, and what if everything was the standard court that we're supposed to play on. Like, I don't want to go home thinking about that. So that's the only reason why I would do it too. But I was talking to Deon and was basically saying, UT has taken about a little bit less than, a little bit more than half of a 3-point attempts than NC State. So over this season, Texas took 374 3-point attempts, and NC State has taken 616. So NC State nearly doubles the amount of 3-point attempts throughout the season. And so if, maybe that was a strategy for Texas, was that, well, we don't take as many threes, so it may not affect us as much as it would the Wolfpack. Now, it didn't work out if that was the game plan in deciding to play. But I could see it. I could definitely see it if that was the topic of conversation when trying to make a decision. But yeah, the women's game, Isaiah James came out of nowhere. Was she on the radar? What's going on?
I was going to ask, you didn't expect none of this, but do you expect them to go this crazy against one of the top defensive teams? Timeout. Okay.
Yeah, he's saying timeout.
I did.
What's up, Jake?
Yes, I did expect it. Cory Mose can bring up the receipts. I texted him before the tournament started. When I checked, when I was making my bracket, I saw that the Elite Eight matchup would hypothetically be a number 3 seeded NC State taking on the top seeded Texas Longhorns. And I texted him when I was making my bracket, your season ends when you face NC State. And I said, remember the name. I said, remember the name Sanaya Rivers. I didn't even talk about it. I didn't even talk about Isaiah James. If you would have told Texas she would have hit 6 for 6 in the first half and made 7 for 9 in the first, I think they would have guarded that differently. That I don't want to say that's an outlier performance. She's performed very well in this tournament. She performed very well the game before as well. She had 25 points. But that was, I think, surprising to a lot of NC State fans. I actually I was working during the game, and I was interviewing an NC State legend, Nora Lynn Finch, former administrator, former coach at NC State. We were just doing a profile talking about the growth of women's basketball. She also was part of the rules committee. That's part of the reason she's a Hall of Famer. We were watching the game, and like we kept we're like, hey, like we have to like timeout. Like, are we watching what's going on right now? Like, she can't miss. Obviously she's a huge fan, but you know, I think even we were just like, oh my gosh, wow, like it's crazy what's going on. She cannot miss right now. So I think
he expected
if Texas would have known that she was going to be that hot, I think maybe that, you know, Coach Vic and then, you know, they would have guarded her a little differently on the perimeter. But I think, like you said, man, like that's just the formula of how NC State played versus how Texas played. Texas obviously a much more inside team. You know, they got the trees. I mean, I said they got the Monstars. And you know, NC State's got some real good guards, and you know, these ACC teams, they play with pace, they play with spacing, and I just think they were able to utilize that.
Yeah, I was telling Deon, I think not having Rory Harmon really affected them this game particularly. You know, your best on-ball defender at the point guard spot, having someone that you can switch onto a Zai in a situation where she may not have been on the game plan, but you got to adapt. So maybe switching Rory onto her, that may have been a solution, but not having her was always a factor. And I have the text right here in my hand. March 20th, Deon. Jake sent this text. I'm letting you know in advance, Texas women go down in the Elite Eight to NC State. March 20th, 7:24 p.m. So, yeah, man, got the receipts, dude. Got the receipts. So he guessed it. So, but that's the women's, though. Jake, you said you kind of expected it, as we just mentioned. You predicted it. But the men's side, I'm sure you didn't have them going to the Final Four.
Before we dive into that, what do you expect for them against South Carolina?
Good point. Good point.
Hey, bro, look, let me tell you.
Oh, snap.
Kaylin is a generational player. Generational player. Paige is one of the smartest basketball players I've ever seen. You can hear, Google what Dawn Staley, one of the best college point guards ever, said about Paige Beckers. Corey knows how big of an Angel Reese fan I am. But come on, bro. Nobody's going to beat South Carolina. Come on.
Okay. All right, great.
Yeah, I love the lead up. I love the build up. The build up was cool.
The game is in an incredible spot. Mm-hmm. There's so many great players, but they on top for a reason, and they're not going anywhere. If I'm being honest, I love the quote unquote parody of the game. They're on top. Nobody's beating them.
That's what I was thinking. But
hey, oh yeah, I agree. I definitely. I will say this though. Let's ask this question: do they cover, Jake?
Can I check the line? Is that already up? I'm gonna go to it real quick.
That's
see
a great
if it
question.
exists. I don't even know.
Look for that. I will say the last two South Carolina games, women's, they have not covered the spread. South Carolina hasn't covered.
ESPN has the line.
I see 11.5.
Yeah, 11.5.
Yeah.
Man.
So the last two games that South Carolina played, they had a 16-point spread with Oregon State. They didn't cover that. And then they had like a 15-point spread against Indiana. They definitely didn't cover that. They won that game by 4. So the last two March Madness matchups, they haven't covered. So, hey, maybe North Carolina State can at least cover. If you say there's no shot they can get the dub. But
yeah, 11.5. I think, and that is a good point. They did not cover. I guess they haven't been as dominant as the spread picks them to be. 11.5 is a lot. It's probably going to come down to if Zay can hit a few of those shots like she's hitting last game and the game before. She hits 3 more of these tough deep threes.
Step back, bro.
Yeah.
You step back.
I would say I'll pick him to cover. I'll pick him to cover.
All right, sounds good.
11.5 is a lot.
There we go. Especially a Final Four. Yeah, I would hope, please, that it's. I hate blowouts.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hope they cover. But look, man, we got to talk about who I'm most excited to talk about.
Oh, DJ.
Man,
yeah, that's my DJ.
Shout out to DJ Burns, man. I mean, do you have the same feeling about the men's as you do as the women? You just knew that they were gonna go this far. They were gonna shock a lot of teams. Like, what was your thought process on that?
So I'm going to float my boat a little bit again. I did have them doing well. We can check my brackets. I have NC State advancing to at least the Elite Eight in every bracket that I make. I thought this team was really good. They have 14 losses this year. They clearly underperformed in the beginning part of the season. They had some great transfers. Obviously, DJ Burns is one of, if not the most important transfers in college basketball. The Horn kid is a great scorer. Diarra is as good of a complementary forward that you can put with Burns. I think Marcel's is how you say his name. He's performed really well on this really big stage. He's an ACC transfer as well. The makeup of the team was there. And I think this speaks volumes to how hard it is to be good for a full season in college basketball because of things like transfers and trying to kind of create that camaraderie of your team, that understanding of roles on your team. Everybody comes in from all of these different situations, and you have, I guess, theoretically they start in August, and, you got a few months to get them ready to compete at the highest of highest levels. That's just not going to be reality anymore. So I think you're going to see a lot of these teams that, are quote unquote underperforming in the regular season are going to, the teams that do figure it out, they didn't come out of nowhere. No, they've all been this good. It's just, it takes time for coaches to mesh these 15 players. Like I said, most of them didn't even play with each other last year. So I knew that this collection of talent was there, and I am a believer in NC State's head coach, Kevin Keatts. I thought it was a matter of time. They almost ran out of time in the ACC tournament. I don't know if you guys remember the semifinal game
against Virginia.
I think, Isaac McNeely, I think is the Virginia kid's name. He's an 87% free throw shooter. Virginia is up 3 with seconds left in the game. He misses both free throws. Already unbelievable. Tony Bennett has 3 fouls to give while NC State is going in transition to 94 feet. Any coach, obviously, hindsight's 2020, will tell you to foul. Do not let them shoot the 3.
Yep.
Just make them stop and hit free throws, and then you get the ball. If anything, then they're up 1. And then I think it was Michael O'Connell hits this crazy wing 3 that banks in. If none of those things happened, we're not even talking about it.
Mm-hmm. And that's the crazy thing to me. I think that's the craziest thing to me. It's like they had to hit this buzzer beater, and not even to win the game though, Jake. They got to hit the buzzer beater to go into overtime, and then you got to win overtime. Mm-hmm. And that's how we get to this point.
Yeah, and that started one of the most magical runs in the history of college basketball.
Oh, man. DJ Burns, man. I mean, just to when you watch him play, Jake, and I just feel like he's America's sweetheart right now. I feel like everyone wants DJ Burns to win the national title.
Absolutely.
And now he's going against the guy that thinks he's the most hated in all of college basketball, and Zach Edey. Mm-hmm. And so where do you think that matchup goes? What are you excited about that matchup? And how do you think DJ may fare against a dude who just dropped 40 points on a really good Tennessee defensive squad?
It's gonna be an incredible matchup. I was talking to UNCW's head basketball coach today. He is a former NC State assistant. He is very tight with Kevin Keatts, and we were talking kind of off the record, how are you gonna, if you were still on the team, like what's the plan? Are you putting Diarra on him? Are you putting Burns on him? How are you going to try and cover this guy? And he said, "Man," he said, "they better F and pray." That dude is so big and so strong. He is Edey. This is he is unlike anybody that they've had to go. Philip Haskey obviously is a great player too. They've guarded a lot of great players, but this dude is just unlike most bodies that you face in college basketball. But I think the same could be said for DJ Burns in a very unique way. Everybody wants to talk about how this matchup kind of reminds them of, as a young college student reporter, I was in the American Athletic Conference. I covered Taco Fall at University of Central Florida. Their first round matchup with Duke and Zion. And people want to talk, the height difference and things. Obviously, Zion is much more explosive than DJ Burns, but in terms of the unstoppable force meeting the immovable object, that matchup to me really resonates in that line of thinking. So I think it's going to be an incredible matchup. I'm really interested to see how NC State does end up guarding Edey. If it's playing him with Burns and trying to, obviously, you got to stay behind him and, use the body to bump him out of the paint as far as you can and then have Diarra come and help. Or do you put Diarra on him and try and, not only just have DJ Burns kind of float, but you kind of probably conserve DJ Burns' energy a little bit. Because we saw in the previous round, Duke was like, go ahead, big fella, beat us.
Yeah.
And look what happened. And in the game before, it was the exact opposite. You saw, I think DJ Burns had 5 assists like in the first 10 minutes in the game before Duke against Marquette. Marquette was much quicker, to double show, and he killed them that way too. So I'm really interested to see how they guard Edey, and if it's not with Burns, I think Diarra can do it. Obviously Edey's a big, strong guy. So they'll probably put Burns on him a little bit just because Burns has that same size. But I would probably guard him with Diarra and try and save Burns.
Yeah.
But that matchup's just going to be legendary, man. It's going to be a legendary game.
You saw the problems, though, when in that game against Tennessee, and then even Purdue's matchup. I can't remember who they played before Tennessee, but foul trouble, right? I think when you get into that foul trouble situation, when you're playing a guy like Zach Edey, you don't have a lot of teams don't have a bunch of bigs that you can just rotate in and out. You usually have about 3 rotational bigs, and so if 1 or 2 get in foul trouble, it's looking kind of slim down low, and that's the last thing you need against a dude like Edey. And so it'll be interesting to see how they officiate this game. Of course, a lot of people say Edey gets every call, so we'll see if that continues to happen in the Final Four. But I think that's also one thing to look out for. Can they stay out of foul trouble to keep a guy like DJ Burns on the court? Because that's probably
I think that's also part of it.
Right now.
That's also one of the arguments to not have DJ Burns guarding him, at least in the beginning of the game, because if DJ Burns does get, let's say, 1 or 2 quick, cheap fouls early in the game, it's going to completely blow up NC State's plan of attack.
That's for sure. So other than that matchup, what other Final Four matchups or men's and women's? Who are you looking forward to?
Yeah. Real quick though with DJ Burns, I just want to say in the transfer rules, I love the fact that he spent years at Winthrop. He actually played for a guy named Pat Kelsey, who national basketball fans are about to find out. He just took the job at Louisville. He was at the College of Charleston after. So I've spoken with Pat Kelsey about DJ Burns.
Okay.
So I had followed his career at Winthrop, which is just south of the border. So the fact that America gets to see him on this stage, the immediate eligibility and the fact that he's got the year to do it. Otherwise we wouldn't have this. So I just want to say I really commend the fact that these rule changes allow these kids to have immediate eligibility and have the ability to perform on the stage when they can, because that always wasn't the case. I am stoked to see the Iowa women. I really, really want to see that matchup with South Carolina.
Yeah.
But first, Paige Beckers is in their way. And in the men's side, man, if I'm going to be honest, I'm not. It's so funny. I talked about the parity of the game.
You can say it. You can say it.
We're all thinking it. Or South Carolina's on top, but I think it's the same thing with the men, bro. I think it's UConn's title to lose, bro. I think there's so much better than every other team right now, and it's Hurley got them playing at a crazy level. They got really, really great players.
Jake.
Yeah,
30-0 run like that.
I watched that game.
Half
my family are fighting Illini alums
at the end of March.
including my dad. My dad and I were texting back and forth about the game, and oh my goodness, bro, they went on the 30-0 run, but they also started the game on a 10-0 run. And I'm just watching, like, I texted my dad even before he responded, like ILL, and he's supposed to respond INI, but before he could even respond to that, I sent him the South Park meme, and it's gone. That's how quickly it felt like the game was over, bro. That's how quickly it felt like the game was over. They are incredibly dominant, and they, college basketball is still a game played by kids. I feel like there's so much fluctuation with performance and things like that. It's so hard to predict how these kids are going to do. I do not feel that way with UConn.
Yeah, I think they're going to be up and ready to play, and they can play any type of style, any type of way.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we speak about Purdue and Edie, and let's just say if Purdue does beat North Carolina State, I mean, you kind of had Klingon down low. And that's a matchup that
Yeah,
I'm
that's
sure
gonna be a real
they're
good matchup
fine
too.
with. I think they're fine with Klingon and battling down low with Zach Edey and just seeing how it goes. And no other team in this tournament really has a guy that they're just like, yeah, we'll just put him on Edey and see what happens, you know? And so they're confident. And let's just say Klingon does do a decent job on Edey. You still got the rest of the UConn roster to worry about offensively. And I just think this team is just so well put together. It'll be tough to see them go down for sure. I totally agree with you. They're dominant on both sides. But one team we won't see in the Final Four is LSU. I know they've been the talk of national media lately, just through all the articles that's coming out, and of course who they have on the team and who they are in general. But Jake, before we let you go, just wanted to ask you your thoughts on the whole Kim Mulkey thing. I know you're plugged into the women's basketball scene, so just what were your initial thoughts of everything surrounding the Washington Post article, the LA Times article? Like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so obviously we've known who Kim Mulkey was as a coach for a long time. She is, you can't tell the history of women's college basketball without Kim Mulkey, but you can have your thoughts on how she treats her players. You can research things her players have said. You can research previous reports about her time at Baylor and now her time at Louisiana State. I thought the article from the LA Times was incredibly disappointing, and how it framed not just Kim Mulkey, but the girls on the team. The word debutante specifically is just an abhorrent way to refer to young women in general, but college athletes specifically. I talked about, you can research Kim Mulkey, you can research the history of the word. The writer has since apologized. He called it a mistake, but I know who the writer is. He's worked at the LA Times for a very long time. This was not a mistake. He chose these words. Editors approved these words. It just so happens, obviously, that they were painting in the other light the team just down the road, the UCLA Bruins. But I thought that was very disappointing, and I think it gives credit to Kim Mulkey and a lot of the outside noise that they have to deal with, whether or not it's warranted or not. That is not even close to warranted, and it was incredibly disappointing to see. I'm sure you both read
the word, Jake.
Go ahead.
Deon, what'd you find when you researched?
Yeah, I mean, I did what Kim Mulkey said. She said, search it up on Google. And I mean, if you haven't searched it up already, searched up debutantes. And I searched up dirty debutantes. And within the first 10, searches, 5 of them were porn links. So the article just keeps getting worse and worse. From that to the words he chose to milk and cookies to Louisiana hot sauce.
Yeah.
It just
blatantly racist. Just blatantly.
It just gets it was just, when you talk about the worst words to choose, it's like he looked up all of them and just threw them in to start his article. So yeah, that's not something that is going to push the game forward. That's not something that's needed with this time of this explosion of women's basketball, and I don't support that. I think that's, like you said, that's embarrassing. That's embarrassing at this day and age, 2024, that these are the things that are still getting put out. That's, racially deaf of what you can and can't say. Like, you just can't say those things.
And let's be honest, a lot of the Louisiana State players, a lot of, obviously women's and men's college basketball players are African-American girls, and these girls are from, they call her the Bayou Barbie. Like, she is the embodiment of that. Like, it felt like intentional. Mm-hmm. And especially just given the atmosphere around that specific basketball team, it was really disappointing. It was really disappointing to read.
And, Deon just spoke about how, like, the state of women's college basketball right now and like, this type of stuff is coming out. It sucks, because of the explosion that we mentioned earlier in the pod of this sport. But then you double down, not just the LA Times article, but then the Washington Post article. And then, like we talked about the court situation, that would never happen in the NBA. That would never happen in the NCAA March Madness for men's. Never.
No.
And so
Never.
You have so many great milestones, right? Like the game we just watched last night with Iowa versus LSU. Like that was box office type stuff. But still, the conversation around halftime and before the game, post game is, hey, what do you think about this court situation? Kim Mulkey in these articles. Like, I wish we could just enjoy the game for what it is right now and not have all these roadblocks as this game continues to grow. But, you know, that's what happens when I guess a lot of people who weren't covering this sport before is now trying to step into the game, and you see, man, you're kind of late, and you kind of missed the whole train of respect at this point, and you need to catch up because now they've earned everyone's respect in America, and if you disrespect them, people will speak out. And I just respected the comments of Haley Van Lith in the locker room about her teammates after this article got dropped, and you know, being, to be honest, the white girl in the room with a team full of black girls, and she was able to step up and say that was racist. And so respect to HVL for doing that. And so, yeah, I just think that's something that doesn't need to be in this game, and it should already been fixed. And all the editors that approved that article, what are we doing? You know, and that's just the question I have, just as a journalist. What are we doing here?
Yeah, I think, you know, I'm really happy you're talking about it, Cory. You got a big following. I'm happy a lot of people are talking about it. You know, these things got to be held accountable, and we're talking about on the media side. A columnist piece on their perception of one team, hold that accountable. At the same time, the administration and the NCAA said, you know, it was like a third party, whatever, that brought the court in and made, like, it's still your tournament.
Yeah.
You are responsible for the product. It cannot happen. So, in the same breath, holding both sides accountable is truly important, especially just like we keep saying, given the explosion of the game, Cory. Obviously, you work for an ABC station. I do as well. We air these games. We can see how popular they have been. These have been some of the most watched games in the history of women's college basketball. I think 4 of the top 7 non-Final Four games in terms of viewership have happened this tournament. And that doesn't even include this past game. This past game that happened Monday night might be the most important game in the history of women's college basketball.
And it was one hell of a game, too. It was one hell of a game,
It lived up,
too.
bro. It lived up. I wish Angel
game.
didn't roll her ankle, though.
Yeah,
I don't know how much it would have changed.
I know. 1 for 12 after rolling her ankle. Or 1 for 13, somewhere around there. Just a completely different player after that incident. But, Jake, man, you continue to be consistently great. So thank you so much for hopping on the pod. First time on the pod. I hope you enjoyed it. But, bro, I enjoy the rest of this week. I know North Carolina's going to be bussing there with North Carolina State doing their thing. And good luck, man. I hope y'all are able to do some things. And we're all cheering for DJ Burns. What you throwing up? Wolfpack?
That boy throwing
That's the Wolfpack, bro.
Yeah.
That's the Wolfpack, bro. Yeah, I tell you what, like I said, I got no reason to have any dog in the fight. I'm from Los Angeles. I started my work in Texas. I've only been here for a few years. I'm rooting for where the momentum is at. And DJ Burns and the NC State Wolfpack are must-watch television. They're, people calling them the Cinderella. I laid out to you guys why I thought they were that good and why they deserved to be on this stage and why they deserve to be looked at as peers and not necessarily a Cinderella. But America views them as a Cinderella, and I know a lot of people are going to be doing this over the next couple of days.
Hey, I'm on the bandwagon, man. I'm a DJ Burns fan, so hey.
Yeah, man. Let's go. Yeah. Go Pack. Go Pack, go.
My guy's always a great vibe, bro. Oh my goodness, I love Jake so much. Yeah, what do you like about the conversation, Deon?
I mean, there was so much, man. You can just tell he's been converted to a NC State fan. He loves the team, and I think the most impactful was the part where we talked about the Kim Mulkey talk. And no matter what you say about her, I'm not a really big Kim Mulkey fan. I didn't really mess with how she didn't support Brittany Griner. There's just no place for dirty debutantes in the day and age that we're in right now, especially with the college women explosion. So, that was kind of my favorite part about it. There's no place for it. It's just crazy that there is no filter when it comes to, our black and brown people. There's filters for all these other communities, but it seems like it just always slips through the cracks when it comes to our black and brown people. So that definitely needs to go into this new age. You definitely got to change that. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of my biggest takeaway. What about you?
Yeah, I first of all, I just want to say I agree with you for sure in that conversation, and it feels like it's always something with us. Whenever time one of us is successful, is always something. And so I totally want to echo that point there. But when it comes to the conversation with Jake, I think one thing that stood out to me was that statistic that he pointed out about how over 60% of the people working in North Carolina was working and watching March Madness at the same time. Talk about a city who cares about basketball,
they
right?
Live and die by them hoops,
man. They had their cubicle while having their phone on, or maybe have a separate screen on the tournament as well. Like they're locked in, they're diehard, and so that's why staying in a place that's a basketball state. Like it's really cool to see all the support that all the teams in North Carolina is getting. Like Jake mentioned, if you just like basketball, there's some type of tie to your team. And so, yeah, that's super dope. But, yeah, I think a great conversation with Jake, of course. A lot of Final Four matchups. What matchup are you looking for, Deon? I know Jake mentioned that Purdue and North Carolina State matchup.
I think you have to go with the potential of South Carolina and Caitlin Clark.
Yeah, have to.
I want to see it. Don Staley and South Carolina, you don't – they're probably been the ones that's been able to – kind of go below the radar with them being undefeated or only lost one game this season. It's kind of crazy that all the talks is literally just, Angel Reese, LSU, Caitlin Clark, Paige Buckner, Juju Watkinson. But you don't really hear much about them, which is kind of crazy. And so I want to see that. I want to see if if they're able to, slow down, stop Caitlin. I was not expecting Caitlin to go crazy. Haley, I'm sorry, but you gotta apply and see if you got a COVID year somewhere, because oh my God, Kim Mulkey left you to drown out there. Oh my God,
on an island.
Yeah, I'm watching the clips. I'm like, yo, you were just getting demolished. And then you're not doing nothing offensively. It's like,
yeah, it was bad.
It was bad, yo. So
but the great thing is she came there to be the girl, right? Yeah. Like once the transfer came out from Louisville, because remember, Deon, I watched her in person when Louisville knocked out Texas last year in the March Madness tournament. And that game, Haley dropped over 20 points, talking her ish. You know what I'm saying? And that was the first girl like that I seen with my own eyes at that level that was like, whoa, she's different, right? She's a bucket getter. And so when she committed to LSU, the whole thought process was, oh my goodness, like they're going to add that type of offensive weapon to this already great roster. But it just never seemed to click with Haley at LSU throughout this whole year. It just looked like she was out of tune. She was out of sync. Felt like the team wasn't really utilizing all her assets. So like you said, it's going to be interesting to see like if she stays or if she goes. And I think right now, she may be looking at, well, Angel's leaving, so this could be like my team next year. At least that's what I would be thinking if I were her.
No.
But it was just tough. It was just tough watching her. It was tough watching her play Caitlin, man. It was really tough watching her play
that's going to be Flage's team. Boy, you don't play after the season you had. That is the last thought you need to have. You need to be she needs to see if she can get another COVID year and she can transfer. You need to get out of there. She's obviously not used to playing with black girls in Louisiana. So she needs to go back to the whitest part of Nebraska and Ohio, something like that. She needs to get out of there, because obviously it didn't work. Like you say, I don't know if it was Kim Mulkey not knowing how to use her or what, but she looked lost a lot of times this season. Lots of turnovers. She looked like she just wasn't sure of herself. So it just didn't work out. This kind of reminds me, fellas, if you haven't watched the women's game, this kind of reminds me of like Westbrook to the Lakers. It just, on paper maybe or in person, it looks like, oh man, this could work. This could be really scary. You got a triple-double machine as in Westbrook joining this already good team with the Lakers. And then once you see it in action, it's like, oh,
it just don't work. It don't work at all.
This is disgusting. So yeah, I don't know. I hope she can figure that out, because like I said, I didn't get to watch her last year, so I didn't know what the hype was. And then I saw her this year. I was like, are y'all sure this is the same player that y'all were talking about?
Yeah.
Or
tough.
I'm missing something?
No, it's tough. It definitely is a different style of player. And it was just unfortunate, because so much high expectations. But for Caitlin to come up and basically have like a legacy game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Get the revenge that she probably wanted, and not only get the revenge and get the dub, but do it in that type of fashion, just dominant. That must have felt good yesterday, Monday night, playing against LSU. And I will say, for my Final Four kind of outlook, I'm interested in this UConn storyline. No one's really talking about on the women's side this UConn team, but let's not forget, Deon, Paige Beckers was the golden child of this era. Let's not forget. Before Caitlin Clark, before Juju, before Madison Booker, it was Paige Beckers. She just been injury prone, torn ACL, and it's just like having to recover year after year. But now she's back to what we thought she could be, Gatorade Player of the Year type stuff. And so, yeah, if she's able, can you imagine, D, for her legacy, if she's able to beat Caitlin Clark and regain that notoriety of I'm that chick. You know what I'm saying? Like, y'all forgot about me, but I was supposed to be the one that's on all the billboards, not you, Caitlin. Like, I think that's a really interesting storyline to watch out for Paige to get her respect back from the national media. And if she's able to defeat this Iowa squad with her UConn team, that's going to be a nice matchup against a 36-0 South Carolina squad, assuming South Carolina gets past North Carolina State. But so much to look out for this week. I can't wait to talk about it next week. But Deon, final thoughts for this week's pod?
Final thoughts. I mean, we got to stay with the women. The discourse of Caitlin Clark playing in the NBA recently. Rob Parker, one of ESPN's affiliates, was on a podcast, and he said that Caitlin Clark could play in this NBA, and mostly for his point of that the NBA is softer. We're in a softer era of the NBA. So I hate this conversation exists. Yeah, I hate this conversation exists because you put somebody in a conversation that doesn't need to be in there.
Doesn't want to be in there.
To try to prove your point. And so now there has to be this discourse of, yeah, she wouldn't score. She wouldn't get a bucket. Yeah, she wouldn't. It's like, dang, again, this is just a conversation that doesn't need to happen. Men and women sports, there's a pitchfork in the road at a certain age. So yeah, the women can't play with the men in some sports, like after middle school, or before middle school, women can't play football. It's just, that's not going to work. It's not going to work. And so same thing with basketball, it's not as physical as football, but the NBA we got to put some respect on these guys that are 7-footers,
bro.
7-foot freaks.
Put Dylan Brooks on her, bro.
Exactly.
Put Patrick Beverly on her.
So I know we're trying to make a point that Caitlin is that good that she could do it, but I just, in reality, it's just like, no, it's not that. But she's still amazing. And I also want to shout out to Ice Cube for the alleged offer of giving her $5 million to go play in the
That's
Big
dope.
Three.
That was dope.
That's amazing. I don't like the discourse of some was it Lexi Brown? She's talking about, I don't like it. I just don't like the move. I'm like, yo, do you want
like a hater? You sound like a hater.
Love? Yeah, do you want the love or not? Like, this is what, you should be applauding. Like, yo, we can actually get $5 million as a lady. See, that's opening the door for more people to potentially, if not $5 million, get a couple mil, $1 million, $2 million, whatever. So I don't know. I don't like the discourse on that, but I just think, the WNBA is in such it's like an egg. Like we got to protect it right now. This is a big time for women's basketball. So it's so many things that we just got to watch what we say. Cause this is, in the next couple of years, we could see it go into a totally different stratosphere. A lot of players that I'm excited to see in the W. I'm excited to see compete. With the new young lady, the new ladies, even with some of the vets in the league now. The aces are dominant. I want to see them go up against some of these young ladies that are coming out of the college. So yeah, that's kind of my final thought, man. What about you, Corey?
Yeah, I'm right there with you when it comes to women's basketball. Heck, man, Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston in Indiana together. That's going to be a nice little combo, man. Real nice combo. But I do want to mention something in the NFL that's been on my mind lately with the Rashee Rice situation. Him speeding down in Dallas, running away from the scene, looking like he could get locked up for about 5 to 10 years for evading and, of course, racing. It's like, why? Just why? Every time I see these type of stories, especially for a guy like Rice, who rookie year became the Chiefs wide receiver one, dominant. He had no competition in that wide receiver room coming into this year. And now you have a quarterback in Patrick Mahomes. You just won a Super Bowl in your first year in the league. Why? And I just wish we would be better in that type of aspect, in those things where you have such great opportunity. You have all this in front of you. Don't throw it away for a night. Don't throw it away for a couple of drinks and you want to go race. Like, bro, millions of dollars is on the line. We're talking generational wealth is on the line. Have some type of self-control in those moments. And it's just an unfortunate situation, even dating back to like a Henry Ruggs situation. It's like a lot of these guys have so much potential, and they just throw it all away for one incident. And it just sucks. It really just sucks for the Black community just to see that. So just hoping that Rasheed is able to figure out some answers, was able to get the right people around him in his circle so that type of stuff doesn't happen. Because I think that's the biggest factor in this. Is like, who's in his ear? Who's his team? I think that's really big for athletes nowadays, to have the right people surrounding you to keep you grounded. And so that's another example. And hopefully this I'm hoping he's not an example now for future wide receivers, for future players in the league in general, because you never want to be an example. But we'll see how the court system goes. So
it's crazy. It's crazy because these guys have the money to where you can do that professionally. Do it in the right setting.
Go on a private track.
Yeah, you can go get. Hey, yo, fellas, I got a court, or I got an open land for us. Yo, you can get the Lambo. You can go get the Maserati, and we can race in a safe environment, a safe space. But yeah, I hate that we have to see these that seem to be yearly. We see something like this. You got to make smart decisions. Too much money to be made today in the future. To throw it all away because you want a speed race. We've seen too many people lose their lives because of trying to have a good time, quote unquote. And it's never ends well.
Never. Never, bro.
It never ends well. We're in the era of cell phones and we're in the era of cell phones and cameras, and I just don't get if they think they're going to get away with it, or if they think they're not as big as they are. You just won a Super Bowl, bro.
Yeah, bro. They know who you are. They're going to run the plays, bro. They're going to run the plays.
You just won a Super Bowl, and you with Patrick Mahomes. People are going to pay attention and find out who you are, where you're at. Like, we know of people like TMZ. They always seem to find people, find the footage, find the documents. Like, yo, people are gonna find you. Yeah. So I don't get the thought process. And like you say, if your friends are encouraging you to do stuff that's not in your best interest, they're not really your friends.
Get new friends.
Yeah.
Get new friends.
You gotta level up. You gotta leave some people behind. And I know it's not tough. I know it's tough that you might have to. Hey, we can't do the things we used to. But bro, you got the life that not everybody has. So it's a sad case that we seem to see quite frequently. But yeah, let's get out of here, man.
Yeah, man. No, thank you for another pod. Thank you, Jake Eichstaedt, for coming on. I hope y'all are able to get to know him a little bit more. Any NC State talk, he's going to have it for you on his social media, so go ahead and look him up. But as always, Deon, thank you so much for joining me on the pod, bro, and all the work that you do behind the scenes. I really appreciate you. And we are looking for an editor still. So if you're out there, you want to edit the pod, let me know. But anyways, all right, D. YERRR.